Hey everyone, this is Dr. Casey Johnson. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I know you're going to love today's episode with Elizabeth Leone. Elizabeth is doing some amazing work, so I'm excited to have her on to share a story with you guys. If you've been loving the Unlock Wellness podcast, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Also, be sure to follow me on social media to keep up with the latest podcast episodes. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My username across the board is at Dr. Casey Johnson. That's DrKaseyJohnson. You can also check out my website at drcaseyjohnson.com. It has all of the past podcast episodes and more information about each guest under the Listen tab. While you're on my site, be sure to check out the Shop tab, where you can check out my first book of my Healthy Children's Book series and learn about the Unlock Wellness Project, which supplies a wellness bag to a child in need for each book purchased. Thank you again for listening. I hope this episode leaves you feeling inspired to start making positive changes to your health. Now it's time for today's episode. I hope you love my conversation with Elizabeth Leone. Welcome to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I'm Dr. Casey and excited for today's guest. I'm here with Elizabeth Leone. And Elizabeth is a teacher for new English language learners, primarily refugees and immigrants who have very limited to no prior education. Her own personal wellness and life journey has given her so much love and appreciation for other cultures and has led to a deep passion of wanting to change the world for the better. And her story is amazing, so I'm excited to have her on to share that with you guys. And yeah, it's going to be fun. So Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking time to come on. I'm excited to have you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and like we were talking about before, big shout out to Overall Chanel. He's a past podcast guest, so be sure to go check out his episode as well because he's amazing. But big shout out to Overall because he's a very good guy.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. And so before we jump into the work that you're doing right now, Elizabeth, let's start with your backstory. First off, where you're from and how your own wellness and life journey has really led you to this point right now.
Yeah, absolutely. At first thought, I didn't even know where to start. But I guess just going from the beginning, I had a pretty rough upbringing with some abuse, and just really lost once I got to the point of elementary school, just acting out and not the person I wanted to be. I knew that then. And so I made friends by helping out classmates that were international. And so I'm from New Hampshire and we don't have very many. Where I was from, Concord is the capital, and there was maybe 3 or 4 international non-English speakers at my school, and I would help them. So I would act out, I would steal lunch tickets, I would bully kids. I'm not proud of any of these things, but then I would come back to class and I would be like, okay, little like mama teacher for these students. Like I knew that they needed help somehow in my psyche, even though wasn't quite there yet. This is 2nd grade. So there's, limited understanding of those kind of deeper things. So I really had a turnaround when I got offered in 5th grade to go on a service trip. And my mom and stepdad, they really weren't fully on board with their 12-year-old going abroad, but I guess they thought it would be a good experience and they let me go, and they were so right. So I went to Dominican Republic and we did service work in basically the jungle, the inner part of Dominican Republic. And then that same summer, I got to go on another cultural experience where I got to stay with an Amish family, which a lot of people don't get to do. Yeah, it was just so unique. My grandparents had a connection with them and they welcomed me. They knew I was kind of in this place, a little troubled, if I might say so. And they welcomed me in. And I would go then every summer after that. So I'd continue to do service trips. And I continued to go to Amish country every summer and spend a couple weeks there at least. And these cultural experiences totally shaped my life, totally changed me. That fifth grade summer when they all started was a turnaround for me when I saw the need. And that's just it. The need of these people, and yet their big, open, wide, loving hearts. It just broke me even at that young age, and it turned me around. And I knew from that day, and I called it this because I was religious, but I said, I want to be a missionary. I want to live abroad and change people, like help people change their lives. And, that's what I'm doing today, even though that was my little girl dream. That's what I'm doing to get today in the public schools. And I see that very evident in the work that I'm doing. And I remember that little girl saying that. And so I love that I've come full picture.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, that's really awesome that your parents let you do that in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that they knew because you were having a lot of issues as a young kid in school, you'd been through a lot, that would be just a perfect life-changing experience? Or were they fully aware of what you were going through and just kind of trusted that you would be okay, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think they were just at their wits' end and didn't know what to do with me. I think I was just, I'm the oldest child, right? So when the first one comes up through the family, it's kind of all experiment. My mom was a young mom, and I think they just thought it couldn't hurt. It can't hurt at this point. So yeah.
Right. No, that's amazing. So, I mean, you started doing all of that work, you continued to take those trips as you got older, right? Because you started those when you said 12, right? So that's like towards the end of elementary school. And I mean, did you continue to take bigger trips as you started to get into middle school, high school, or is it just Amish country like you were talking about before?
Nope. So I took 4 trips total, short-term trips, like about 10 days each. And all of them building with local churches, like helping build houses or community centers or cleaning up neighborhoods and distributing food and those kind of service things. So I did 4 between 12 and 18, and Amish country too. So it all kind of fit in. It was all in the same time period. So when I left that, like I knew this is what I want to do. Going into college, like I had a really clear, I'd already experimented kind of with I grew up fast, and I already knew this is exactly what I want to do. I want to help change people's lives for the better.
And like it gives you so much more gratitude when you've seen situations that are way worse than the current situation that somebody may be going through, or you may be going through, or like your culture is going through. I mean, with everything really. I had a girl on once on the podcast who she does a lot with like food waste, and they go and they gather all of this food that's not being used at different companies, and they make food with it. But she's just talking about like she was at a place where food was a struggle for her, so that's how she got into it. And it's just like you don't realize how important something is like that until it's a necessity, and it's kind of goes into like what with what you're doing is you're seeing situations where people don't have so many resources, and we take that for granted because it's here and it's available. But it's just once you're exposed to that, just how much gratitude it really gives you for what you have and what we really can do here as a society as a whole.
Absolutely. And we especially are seeing that trend still now with immigrants and refugees coming to our country. And, when I go to a student's home or I hear them share their stories, it blows me away every time. I'm a crier. Like I
feel free to cry.
It's okay. I've accepted it.
Yeah.
And it just touches me so deeply what they've gone through. And one parent was just sharing that a daughter got kidnapped. They're from South America. And I have her son in my class, and, her daughter got kidnapped, and just the struggles they went to from that point to try to find her, and they haven't. And just, it just breaks your heart to what's going on in other places. And sometimes we close our eyes to it, and sometimes it's blaring at us in the news, and it's rather annoying. But people are living it every day, and it's heartbreaking.
Right. Yeah, we can turn the TV off, but they can't, so it's just
exactly.
It's insane. And like, I know you had mentioned to me before we started, Elizabeth, too, about, your father was an immigrant, right? So
yes.
How has your family life and how they were raised in their culture, how has that impacted just you as a whole, your want to travel, your want to understand other cultures?
I think that was my seed. I loved family gatherings, and they'd all speak French. So they're French Canadian, so they are bordered to America. But still, holidays when gatherings would be a whole another world. They'd be speaking in French and be the different kinds of foods that they had. So I absolutely adored it, and I think that was the seed that started my whole connection with my my immigrant classmates in second grade. Is like I was just drawn to it so much. So
right, yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure that felt kind of normal, kind of at home, because you're used to just the diversity of everything.
Absolutely, yes, yeah, and I kind of knew how it might feel for them. Hearing some of my dad's stories and my aunt's stories of growing up, like. I can see now that little bit of compassion I had, came out in the right place, in the right place in the right time. And
right.
I have to say I'm proud of little girl me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so how did your story progress from there? You kind of left off traveling just as a young kid throughout high school. You continued in going into college. So how did your story kind of progress from there to lead to the work you're doing right now?
So I became a teacher, and I continued to travel. And so seeing for pleasure, I've traveled to more touristy places in Europe and still Central and South America. But I was able to meet a lot of people internationally who would have trouble getting jobs and learning about the educational system worldwide. And so I developed this passion for quality education. Simply put, a lot of places still teach very rote memorization and very basic, low-level learning, if I can call it that. And they're traditional ways. And so I understand that part of it too, that this is the way it's been done for years. But I developed some close friends who couldn't get jobs because they didn't have English or enough English to even get a job at a convenience store or something like that. And this is just in Europe. And so it made me ask, how is this problem being created and amplified to the point where good students coming out of high school can't even get a simple job? So from there, I went to, I need to fix this, right? I wanted to do something about it. And so I started researching quality educational methods and what actually helps with learning. And so I'm going through my master's. I'm finishing up my thesis now on a method called project-based learning. And it's not just what it sounds like, where you give students a rubric and a project to complete as almost the dessert at the end of a unit. Mm-hmm. It's actually the unit itself. And students are really forced to analyze and evaluate and create in order to learn. They really have ownership over their learning and truly become very independent. And so when you combine this with language learning into real world authentic settings, it's shown to be so impactful to the brain. And the students I've seen who have gone through this program with me, it's been astronomical how their confidence and self-esteem and language and content knowledge has just exploded. So yeah, it's something I'm very passionate about. And I think that, I see this as something I I'd like to bring further than my classroom public education setting. I'd love to bring this international. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now.
No, that's awesome. No, because I mean, like you were talking about, it's with the educational system just as a whole. I mean, yeah, it's been set up in a traditional setting for so long. And I think people get stuck in that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. I mean, think about how many things we've done wrong as we've aged as a society that's how it's always been done. Typically that's usually a wrong way. Like you have to keep like adapting and learning and trying new things.
Exactly.
And with the education system right now, it's just like, it doesn't adapt to all types of learners. It's very memorization based, like you were saying. And, I'm just thinking like just back on like my own experience. School was pretty easy for me, but but there was a lot of topics that I really didn't learn a whole lot. I just was okay. I did fine at memorizing things it doesn't make it like, I could probably memorize something and get a good grade, but that doesn't mean that I learned it. And that's not really the point. And there's so many things that are like that, or like schools are set up to not really teach people how to be proactive or lead. It's more like, just more like following direction.
Exactly.
And so many issues with that. And so I love what you're doing with the project-based learning, because it really helps, I guess, learn by doing, right? And I think that's why things like trade schools, people actually learn a whole lot more because they're actually doing that trade and they can learn. It's just not sitting there with a book, try to memorize something for the questions at the end of the chapter. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, exactly. I am super passionate about letting my students get their hands dirty, and not just physically, but like metaphorically, like digging into a topic. And even if they get on a rabbit trail, there's learning to be researchers. So that learning is in the process. It's not the product that actually matters. That process of learning to be autonomous and learning to think critically and problem solve. And this is such an importance to collaborate. We have so many adults or kids coming out of school 18 years old without basic skills. They call them soft skills. And it's like common sense, like ability to deal with people, positive, flexible attitude. And, so when it's a problem. Yeah. And now we're combining it with language learning with students my students come to America with such limited English to no English, but with also limited education. So they don't know how to learn or to speak for themselves, or they've never been given a chance to problem solve or to use their opinion. And so you're teaching all these life skills, but within the topics of the curriculum, like going back to Common Core and all the things that we have to do and do as teachers, we're meeting them through project-based learning, but in an innovative way where students are able to use technology and ask their own questions. And I do this little routine with my students. I model for them how to be good researchers, because that's such a foreign thing to them. So we ask a funny question, like, we have a book, like it's a funny fact. It's, what is the lamb's color under his fur, or something like a lamb's, like stupid little things. And then we have to ask questions together, and we explore it, and we go down rabbit trails, and just through this communication and this thought process, and we do it all on like a smart board. It teaches them how to think for themselves and inquire and to own their knowledge and really see, like, have a choice of where to go and what they want to know. So they take those skills and then they're able to apply those to the curriculum, meaning the competencies that they need for the district or standardized tests. And they're able to do the same thing. And now they're able to do it with integrity and on their own, eventually through guidance. Right. And this actually, going back to language, has been so amazing because they're taking risks and they're taking chances. And what I'm most excited about all of this is that students are engaged and empowered in their learning. And that's what we want for adults as adults and in the workplace and for your own life. And like that to me embodies wellness. Like for somebody who is engaged with their life and feels empowered, like they have a voice that they're welcome here. And so for my immigrant and refugee students, it's so powerful.
Right. No, I mean, just having that confidence. I mean, like, if you're listening and you've ever visited a country outside of your own, it's, how difficult it is, like if you don't speak the language. I mean, now imagine throwing yourself in there, trying to learn a language and trying to do it with confidence and have I don't know. Like, I can't imagine.
It's so hard.
Honestly, like that would be crazy. It would be so hard, and it would be a confidence blow if it wasn't done the right way. So I think that's amazing. And like, do you work solely with new English learners and immigrants, or is it like a mix of the two?
So it's a mix of immigrants and refugees, but they're all new English learners. I only teach English as a second language.
Okay.
But the way my city does it, and it's really unique, at least in our New England area, is that we pool all the kids who are in their first year learning English together. So I have students who know enough to write a sentence, and then I have students who are still working on the alphabet and repeating. The cool thing that I've seen is through these innovative and confident building and collaborative learning, within like 6 months, we're seeing them jump astronomically. So I had students last year who learned English and shared with me at a presentation in our downtown for Welcoming Week for new immigrants. They got up and shared these poems that they wrote. And a lot of times in classrooms like mine, students will copy and at first a lot of copying will need to happen. We call it scaffolding. Mm-hmm. So you build up a student's knowledge base of where their needs are. And it's unique for every student. So I have right now 15 students, and maybe one of them I have one who won't speak. She writes beautifully, and it's perfect sentences, her grammar, her listening. She does exactly she's very, very shy about her speaking. And I know she can, but she hasn't practiced enough because she's so shy to do it. But then I have students who speak perfectly and won't stop, but can't read or write at all. So you have to scaffold up and build up where their weaknesses are and where their needs are. And that just means helping support that area. And then eventually kind of taking them away slowly, our metaphoric scaffolding, until they're independent in an area. So this is something I do a lot and differentiated for every student a different way, whether it's be a different text that I use or a different project. There's almost never a time that I give a worksheet or a same assignment for every student. It's always at their ability. I ask them a question and they're able to now, knowing what I'm expecting, are able to produce something, create something, which we see is the best way. The absolute top way to learn is creating. So by creating, they can give me their best product. Right. So I guess the other cool thing about creating, if I could just say one more thing,
go for it.
They are also assessing themselves through these creations. So it gives them this motivation. So these very at-risk kids, they're coming in with no formal education. So I teach, my classroom itself is 4th and 5th grade. Mm-hmm. They are coming in with never been in school. So 10 years old, have no school experience and no English. And now they are plopped in America and having to adhere to our educational system. And so I'm a teacher who likes to come up beside them to use the process that I explained to you. A lot of these projects that they're creating, a lot of scaffolding in between, so that they can create something in the end that elaborates on their knowledge and is able to show me actually what they know. Then they look back at what they did and are reflecting and assessing. And this is so impactful for students at risk because they're able to see other people and make an assessment of themselves and if they've met the bar. And this is one of those positive peer pressures that people experience in life. And it's not based on what an adult teacher is saying. They're making that assessment for themselves. Did I do the best I could? Is this as much as I know? Did I present it in a way that someone can understand? And even these questions alone, maybe they might seem simple, but for students who have never been in school, these are huge wins for us. So these are going to be the kids being next in society and next into college, and they're able to think critically, and they're able to problem solve, and they're able to push themselves to do their best work. And so it's something I'm really passionate about, and getting kids ready for real life.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I love the compassion for you loving what you do. I think it's very important. And yeah, I'm sure it's a very emotional job for you as well. I know you already mentioned you're a crier, but I can't imagine like what situations you've had to witness, especially with the high risk kids that are coming in, especially with current events. That's a whole nother topic we won't jump into. But I just can't. I just don't know how you deal with that emotionally, because I think I would be a wreck. I can't imagine what you see and go through all the time.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, they're like positive win moments that I'm just like over the top emotional. I have a little boy, and we can't assess that he's special needs yet. He's only been here a very, very short time. He's one with no formal education prior. And he wrote his name and the smile. He came up to me with his paper and his smile. And it was kind of, if I'm honest with you, it was kind of his name. It was kind of. But
yeah,
we jumped up and down, and we celebrated, we cried, and he was just beyond happy. And so these kids are just so thankful to be here. And even though they've gone through so much, they are willing to open up and try and be vulnerable. And that to me is just such a beautiful thing, because they all have a story, have a devastating story. And so it's just, I have to, I'm the type of teacher who academically, I like to build the culture of confidence. And, I'm sure people have heard of it, the growth mindset. We're in this growth mindset era, and like explaining to them, like really through actions, because they've never heard of this concept. But like, we are doing this together, and you can do this, and you never have to give up. And because language is hard. Anybody who's tried to learn a language, it can feel nearly impossible. And it's easy to lose if you don't keep practicing, and it's hard to gain. And so it's a frustrating thing. And so, speaking of wellness, we had a wellness day, and I'm not to toot a horn, but I'm the only teacher. I got out my gym clothes, and I ran with them. We had to run for 15 minutes. We ran and but like, that's what they need. They need a loving and safe environment, and school culture and city culture. And that's powerful for them.
It is. It definitely is. And I 100% agree with everything that you're doing. And like you were talking about with the project-based learning, that can really be applied with any situation. Not just learning a new language, and not just with kids. Honestly, with anything. I was just like, when you were just talking about just the concept of like learning as you're creating something, or learning as you're becoming a researcher, like, I've had to put together or help put together a bunch of like courses lately, and I think I've learned more about stuff that I felt pretty confident that I knew a lot about while I've been creating those. It's just like when you
Yeah.
have to become a researcher and you have to literally make things out of stuff that you're researching and learning and putting together, like that's when you learn the most, and that's when it really does stick with you and like doesn't go away, and then you can
Absolutely
speak it and write it and comprehend it. Like it's just it really is a game changer. So I think it's really cool how it can be applied to any situation, not just young kids, but for adults too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I'm working on. Like my next, if I was going to give you, I gave you my past. If I was going to give you my future, right? You like, I'm going to proclaim it into the universe. I want to bring this internationally to the places that I visited and really help adults like my friends in Italy I'd mentioned earlier learn English and authentically, not through children's books because they don't have English. We don't have to teach them through children's books. Teach them through projects that they're actually interested in and professional experiences, and learning English through these is actually going to help them learn faster and more in depth and prepare them for actually using it and ultimately getting into those jobs that they want to have. So I would like to bring this internationally, help train teachers in these more authentic and rigorous, really, ways of teaching that have a better, more successful outcome for students.
That's awesome. I know you had mentioned, Elizabeth, that you have like a reporter that's about to follow you around, really track the process. Do you want to talk about that? Or is it that process going to be as you try to introduce it internationally and create a program like that?
No. So it's really exciting. My city, my school district has been partnering with Buck Institute. They're an industry leader for education for PBL, project-based learning. And so they have noticed what I've been doing in my classroom with my students and the success that they've had and the confidence that's been built. And so they've selected me out of thousands of teachers. I feel beyond honored to follow one of my projects. And so I'll tell you about it. So the students are learning about community, right? So they're new students. They should learn about fireman and fire station and these vocabulary, police and community vocab. But in order to do this, we get real hands-on. We take multiple trips into the community. We walked, they were so mad at me. I didn't warn them enough, but we walked 4 miles and just hit all these community spots in our downtown. It was over like 6 hours. So they were fine, but we hit all these spots. So so we walked all over downtown and we met policemen on horses and fire trucks, and they were just able to engage with their community. And before we went, they took some guesses of what we might see after we've already learned about what's in the community, and which means they're really digging in to text and talking about their community. It's not like we're reading textbooks or doing worksheets. They're really digging in, and they said, I think these things will be in my community. And they made a list. And then we go out and they asset map, and they actually walk through and they check off, okay, we saw a restaurant, check. We saw a bank, check. And we learned so much. Assets mapping is something strategically cities do all the time. And so these kids are getting this great knowledge of what's here and what's good and what's important. So we have 5 banks. So we have 10 restaurants. And so then we take it back and we analyze and we say, well, what's missing? What's missing for you? What are you missing? Is there not a halal store that close enough to your home that you could walk because many don't have cars? Or, oh, my kids are so into soccer. Is there not a soccer field near you with soccer balls accessible for playing and practicing? And because they all want to be soccer players right now. So they have to make assessments about their community now. And so let's remember, these kids they're doing these high level things and not bored out of their mind, and not because I'm forcing them, but because they're actually interested in their community and what's good about it. And So we're taking this all to the mayor, and we're going to be presenting, and they'll all be sharing, which we will see. I have a very quiet group of students this year. So in the classroom, we're all good. We're going to have to spend a good long time doing some very like explicit instruction on presenting and lots of practice. But we're going to go to the mayor and present her our findings about the assets in our community and what is good for welcoming others, and then make proposals about what might be missing and what could be better. So that's the project that I'm working on now. And some of the highlights that the district is focusing on is not only the community, but the kids are taking ownership. And even though they're new here, they're saying, this is my home and I am welcome here. And really digging deep and gaining that like cultural awareness. And so that's the project. That's the big project that I'm working through with my students right now. And we're like mid-projects. We're about to make our products that we're going to be bringing forward to the mayor. So
that's awesome. No, I love that. And like you said, it just gives them ownership. And also too, it's just like, I think it's so important at a young age to the fact that they feel like, even though they haven't had it easy, that they can still assess issues, make a game plan, and feel confident enough that they can take action and potentially see results. Because I mean, think about how many adults that probably you and I both know that will see a problem and all they'll do is maybe think about it. It's a problem, talk about it, complain about it, never make a game plan, never are going to go through with a plan to make change. So it's already at a young age giving them that mindset of, I see a problem. How can I fix it? How can I make a game plan? And who do I go to share this with to try to make a game plan to fix it? And I think that's huge. And it's not, I mean, that's not what you get in a public education system right now. And I don't want to hate on them too bad, because I've had some great teachers, but I mean, for the most part, you're not getting that. And it is a problem, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That for me is the end result I love, and that's why I do what I do. And that to me is that wellness connection, that they are going to have minds that are strong and that are confident. And what is that movie? She says, you're kind and you're smart and you're important, and I want my kids to like leave knowing that they exactly have a voice and they can make a difference. And how many adults, you're right, are sitting in jobs that they hate or don't agree with something, but don't do anything about it. And even on Instagram the other day, I had a friend say like, oh, my job is so meaningless. I just don't feel like I have a purpose. Like I just have kind of lost my flair. I'm like, okay, come to my classroom. Like, come spend one day with us.
Or it's, we're at an election time, right? It's like social media is so full of just like everyone's opinions. But besides, I mean, obviously, voting's very important, but there's things that can be done in the meantime that aren't done. So it's just like, just that action step. And I loved how you were just talking about the correlation between education and wellness, because I mean, those two are intertwined together as much as anything could be. And which is why I'm glad that you came on here today, because it's not a traditional episode. We're not talking about nutrition but education is so important for that. I mean, just like you were saying, if you feel confident with a certain topic or confident in your education, then you're going to have more confidence in your everyday life or speaking with people. And that just over time, you're going to have a healthier mindset. And obviously with a healthier mindset, that only leads to more positive things. That's kind of where that base needs to be. Like you can be super healthy with a poor mindset, and that doesn't work. Like,
exactly.
You eat all the kale all day, but if you're not confident and you don't feel like you can go out and do things and take action on your life, like it just doesn't work. So education and that mindset is just the base of it all. So I love it.
it's like that. It goes back to the growth mindset. Like you have to exercise your brain. You have to, as humans, I fully believe that we are never meant to stop learning and creating and reading. And I know that I feel so much better when I do that, more confident and more whole and grounded when I'm learning something new that's important to me and I feel like I have connection and say into it. I feel like a whole different person.
Right. Yeah. No, 100%. And I love all the work you're doing, Elizabeth. And I know you talked about some of the future work you're doing, obviously trying to get this program going international. Was there anything else that you're working on in the future that you just want to put out there and share with people, or just continue to work on project-based learning? I know you said you're working on your thesis, or is there anything else that you want to put out there and share?
Yeah, so I'll definitely send something to attach to the podcast if you want to see some of the research behind project-based learning. If anybody is more interested, they can definitely contact me. As for the business coming soon, I really felt like I needed to get a couple steps out of the way. I have 3 young kids at home, and I was finishing up. I wanted to finish up my thesis and get a couple things settled. But yeah, I definitely, you'll see that in the future. Okay. And a big part of it that I didn't share is international immersive educational home here in the States, where people can come and learn English through some of these more innovative methods, and really nailing down what that means and what that looks like, and what these practices and methodologies, how they come to life. And then that's the strategies that I want to bring abroad. So practicing them here for people to come and learn, and it'll be almost like bed and breakfast style, where they'll stay with me and get education, but we do travel trips and whatnot. And then, through the research of how much that people are able to progress, that's what I'd like to really use as the research to spread when I go abroad and bring this some of these theories out into the world.
I love it. And a quick question for you, Elizabeth, because I know a big reason that, I think the more people start to realize how the traditional school system isn't the best fit for a lot of kids, a lot of people are going towards things like homeschooling, or like a group homeschooling. Is this something that there are homeschool programs available that apply this kind of learning, or are you guys working on that, or is there anything like that available? Just because I know that is a big reason why so many people are starting to turn to homeschooling, is just because they don't want their kids to just be information regurgitators. It's just like, so have you seen that type of program available?
I haven't, but it would be the perfect model to take to homeschooling. It's something that's student led, so it's based on student interest. They can pick a topic, and as long as the parents is watching that the competencies. I don't know that much about homeschool, like graduation and passing, what criteria that has, but it's rigorous and it's authentic, and it really puts the power in the student's hand to plan and progress their project forward at their own pace, and with the tools that you help give them through that scaffolding I was talking about earlier. It's absolutely something that could be transferred to homeschooling. Actually, sometimes I feel like that every one of my students is doing something slightly different, and that's okay. And that's something I pride myself in. So absolutely, it's very student led and can be individualized.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And there's actually a lot of, it's pretty popular, especially locally to where I am in Florida, like charter schools, like where they go to an actual school like 2 or 3 days a week, and then the other days are homeschool. It's like a mix.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see how like those type of schools would do, like integrating with those kind of programs as well. It's I'm with you. I think some major changes need to definitely be made, and 100% on board with what you're working on. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's something I would love to learn more. We don't have much of that up here, the charter schools, and even homeschooling is not as popular up here as some of my friends down in Florida. It seems like they're all homeschooling, but it's, the bottom line is it starts with a challenging question, and then the students do a lot of their own learning from there. And so with supports. So certainly, I think it's amazing for anyone, child to adult, homeschool, not homeschool, self-learners to business. A lot of businesses internationally and in our country do learning programs for their employees, whether it's passing, a test or something. Mm-hmm. So I think it's something so good and so beneficial that we're going to start to see popping up everywhere.
Awesome. No, I love it. And I'm excited to see all the work that you do and put out there and the changes that you make. And, what is the best way for people to follow you on social media? That way they can keep up with everything that you're working on and the projects that you have coming out in the future.
Yeah, no, I'd love people to come on board. I have a classroom page where you can see what we're working on and follow us through that. We just counted pumpkin seeds the other day. We took a break from our community stuff and did a pumpkin opening. It's something they were like, they didn't know what was going to be inside. It was just, everything is exciting.
Yeah.
So definitely my Instagram is the best way. I have a classroom Instagram page. It's ms.leone, my last name, Leone, .ell.squad, SQUAD. So that would be the best way. And definitely I'd love for people to get in touch if they're at all interested. And I will also share some of the research that I've been compiling for my thesis.
Awesome. And is there like a website in your bio for that, or the site that you were talking about with your kids and the projects, they're all on that site as well, on your Instagram?
You know what? It's not there yet because it's not a final product, but you know what? This week it will be. So yes, I will put it up this week for some of that research, but I would love for people to get in touch if they're at all interested in more information, even through a message on there. I'll give my personal email too for you to put underneath in the write-up, but I will, yes.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, no, I'll put all of that in the show notes. That way people can just go click and give you an ad and check out everything that you're doing. And yeah, so Elizabeth, just closing question that I ask every guest. But if you just had one piece of advice for the audience, maybe it's something that's been your biggest takeaway through your own wellness life journey so far. But if you only had one piece of advice to give, what would it be?
Never stop learning. And the best place to do that is to get out into the world.
Love it. No, that's perfect, Elizabeth. And just thank you so much for all that you do. I'm excited to follow along with everything that you're doing. I know it's going to be amazing. And just thank you so much for taking time to come on. I loved having you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. It's been awesome to be able to share. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you loved my conversation with Elizabeth. She's doing so much positive work, so be sure to give her a follow on social media to keep up with everything that she's been working on. You can find our social media links that we talked about in the episode in the show notes, but you can also find them on my website as well at drkaseyjohnson.com. That's drkaseyjohnson.com. Click on the Listen tab. Then from there, you'll be able to see all of the past guests that have come on the Unlock Wellness podcast, read a little bit about each guest, and be able to click on their social media links, websites, all of that. So all of Elizabeth's information can be found on my site as well. If you guys loved today's episode with Elizabeth, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Thank you guys so much again for tuning into today's episode. I hope you loved it. I hope it inspires you. And most importantly, I hope you take action.